WJR.
You know, I know it may surprise you, as it does some people, that the largest U.S. oil and gas companies, and we're oftentimes referred to in a negative fashion as big oil, really are quite small when we're compared to our global competitors. In fact, in total, the U.S. oil and gas companies only hold about 6 to 8% of the world's proven oil and gas reserves. That, ladies and gentlemen, is not big oil. So it's really critical for all of us to recognize that our nation is in a tough global competition for new oil and gas supplies, and that U.S. oil and gas companies are indeed our best ally in this battle. It simply makes no sense to further hinder our ability to compete by restricting access to new areas, unfair taxation, regulation, or other restrictive policies. The other aspect of diversity I talked about was encouraging the development of alternative and renewable sources of energy. America's oil and natural gas companies have made major investments in alternative forms of energy. Over the last 5 years, in just the U.S. and Canada, we've invested together $12 billion into renewable, alternative, and advanced non-hydrocarbon technologies. In fact, if you add up all the various types of emerging energy technologies, over the last 5 years, our industry has invested almost $100 billion. That number is more than 2.5 times as much as the amount spent by the federal government and all U.S. other companies combined. We know that energy diversity shows promise on many fronts. Our industry has also invested heavily to meet and exceed federal requirements for ethanol blended gasoline. Last year as an industry, we used 5.4 billion gallons of ethanol, 25% more than what was legislated and required. And we're certain that number is going to continue to grow into the future. Marathon, for its part, also has an expanding ethanol investment program that is designed to increase our ability to manufacture, blend, and distribute this growing component of our U.S. transportation fuel mix. We were one of the first companies to see the potential of ethanol. Marathon is, we believe, the largest blender of ethanol in the Midwest, one of the first U.S. oil companies to initiate its own ethanol production operations, a leader in quality testing of ethanol, and a pioneer in creating the infrastructure necessary to push ethanol into more and larger markets in the Midwest and Southeast. We're investing in both transportation and storage assets in all of our terminals, such that by the middle of 2008, we will have the capacity to blend to E10, or 90% gasoline, 10% ethanol, across our entire network from the tip of Florida to the northernmost reaches of Minnesota. And to make sure we remain in a leadership position and have access to the ethanol that we need, we're adding manufacturing capacity. In the first quarter of next year, we expect production to start at a new joint venture ethanol plant that we're building in Greenville, Ohio. Its annual capacity will be 110 million gallons of ethanol. Marathon believes a nationwide goal of E10 makes great sense because it can be accommodated within the existing vehicle fleet and within the modifications we're making to our distribution systems. But government policy, while well-meaning, is sometimes at odds with this goal. A significant number of states have laws with specifications for gasoline that are difficult to meet with ethanol blends. Real-world experience suggests that these restrictions on ethanol blending afford no meaningful protection to consumers, but these laws nonetheless remain on the books. As an impediment, Marathon is working hard to encourage uniform and defensible fuel specs across the U.S. On the flip side, there's legislation being considered in Congress that would require mandated levels of ethanol use that can't be reached with current corn-based ethanol technology, and would require technological breakthroughs such as cellulosic ethanol in order to meet these high levels. Cellulosic ethanol is a very promising but uncertain technology, both as to its timing and cost. So let me turn to other alternatives I believe solar and wind energy have important roles to play and will grow in use in those specific locales where they are abundantly available. In fact, General Electric expects 8 to 10% annual growth in the wind turbine market. Nuclear energy is not exactly a new technology, a new energy source either, but we must use technology to help overcome the challenges of cost and waste disposal, along with the perceived safety issues, so that nuclear energy can play a much larger role than it currently does or is even envisioned. I think there's tremendous opportunity to do much more here, particularly as we begin to focus on those energy sources that don't emit carbon dioxide. To wrap up on alternative energy sources, let me just make clear, none of these options alone are going to meet our needs, but each will have its own niche, and in total, they are capable of increasing the supply and diversity of energy sources. The third and last component of a U.S. energy security strategy is technology. Technology is vitally important in increasing the supply of energy, in moderating demand, and in protecting the environment. Operations in our refinery here in Detroit, Michigan's only refinery, would not be possible without truly remarkable technological savvy. Breaking and reforming molecules under very high pressure and high temperature is not magic. It's now standard operating practice for us. And in 2005, we completed some $300 million in Detroit clean fuels technology and expansion that helped bring an additional 1 million gallons a day to Midwest markets. America got the fuel it needed when it counted most. In the future, as I mentioned previously, with respect to our Canadian oil sands project, we're thinking of bringing that heavy oil right here to Detroit, which will necessitate significant investment that will create more than 130 full-time jobs, plus the uplift in contractor jobs during construction. We will remain, as we always have been, committed to being a good neighbor and to completing the project with the same safety, efficiency, and environmental sensitivity that Marathon has done in the past. But whether it's refining the product or finding the base hydrocarbons, the technology we use in this industry is truly amazing. I like to tell people we're in a commodity business, but we use space-age technology. We truly do. However, no area of innovation, in my opinion, or technology development is higher priority than carbon capture and sequestration, or CCS. Because, as I indicated before, fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, and coal, are going to continue to be the dominant sources of energy for the U.S. and the world for a long time. So in order to protect the environment, we must capture and permanently sequester a large fraction of the CO2 produced by burning these fossil fuels. While most of the technologies for CCS are essentially available, much remains to be done in improving the capture stage, demonstrating feasibility on a large scale, and lowering the cost. There are several major CCS projects underway around the world today that hopefully will point the way forward on this critical technology. Before I close, let me address those who maintain that U.S. oil and gas companies aren't doing enough to increase supplies of refined products and protect the environment. And I want to cite two quick examples. First example is that since 2000, U.S. refiners have invested about $20 billion to almost completely eliminate sulfur from gasoline and diesel. $8 billion of that was for ultra-low sulfur diesel, which is the cleanest diesel fuel supplied in the world today, and which permits Detroit now to sell new generation clean diesel vehicles that are 25% more efficient than the alternatives. I think it's also important to point out that this was $20 billion of investment that has no economic return. It didn't result in lower cost. It didn't result in new volumes. It was simply a stay in business investment.